Hi, thanks for coming tonight on this ridiculously cold evening. Right next to me is the playwright for Queen Maeve, Judith Thompson, who is beloved of our community and a particularly beloved person here at Tarragon. She's the winner of many prizes, twice the Governor General's Award, and she's a professor of theater studies at the University of Guelph, among her many other works and gifts. Yeah. And things. And on the other side of Judith is Professor Anne Dooley. She is a professor emerita at the University of Toronto. She's a co-founder of the Celtic Studies program. We have her to thank. Oh. And she was a professor of Celtic and medieval studies. So Judith's play is named after a very famous Irish we were just saying, was she mythic? Was she real? So we'll perhaps talk about that. But I wanted to ask both of you, maybe I'll start with you, Annie Doo. When and where, how did you discover Queen Maeve and what drew you to her?
Well, she's a hard woman to be drawn towards, so to speak. She's not initially very welcoming.
Oh dear.
But I think the connection with Queen Maeve, for anybody who ever crossed the Shannon to go for their summer holidays in the west of Ireland, you're into Maeve country there. And when you cross the Shannon into the pasture lands of Roscommon and East Galway, and then up through Mayo and Sligo, and you meet the great Table Mountain in Sligo, and your father, as all fathers do, indicate to their children, you see that cairn up there, that's Queen Maeve's grave. Mm. And the mountain is such an extraordinary mountain, and this cairn looking over the sea and the landscape, you cannot fail but to be imprinted with this image of a figure who may be mysterious and maybe but fragmentarily known, but who has left her mark on landscape. And I think that's one of the clues to getting into the mythical aspects of all this, that you absorb her in a sense through landscape. She's supposed to have created this river, she's supposed to have done this, done that. And she's, Maeve's bed is there forever up on the top of Ben Bulben. And she's in a sense a sign of the West.
Mm. Wow. Mm. I want to believe she was real now. I don't want to believe she was fictional at all. And Judith, how did you come upon her?
Well, I was thinking about where we do draw strength as ordinary people when we need strength, especially as women. And women need power, women need empowerment, women need to find their queen. And our first queen, of course, usually is our mother. And then we look to other queens. And growing up Catholic, the next queen was Mary, Mother of God. Then my frenemy, the girl who was my boss lady from the age of 2 till 11 and told me what to do and told me I was stupid and all those things. And then you find other queens, and then I wanted a queen who was not the mother of somebody or my mother, but was a warrior queen. Because this character in this play needs the warrior queen to fight the ultimate battle, which is her end. And even more than that, more intimidating than that, is memories of episodes in which she was guilty, in which she felt immense regret. And we all have regrets, and to do with her family. And so she had to revisit these times in order to ready herself for the end. And she needed to find the queen within her.
Hmm. And Anne, you mentioned earlier, I think it was off mic, so we might, but that she, or maybe you said that she was part of the cattle raid of Cooley, this famous.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about given that Judith has just been talking about fighting the great battle, that's her famous battle, correct?
And that she lives on now in Judith's play, which
Yes.
is yet another link in the great chain, which I think is to be just lauded and celebrated. But I think, well, even the medieval Irish writers themselves knew that they really needed to produce a great text that would stand with the Iliad, the Iliad, the Aeneid, etc. And so they set about putting together some of their own traditions to create that. They didn't create it in verse entirely. They created it in mixed verse and prose. And it told the story, which in a sense goes very far back indeed in European prehistory. The stealing of the cattle of the sun, the raiding of cattle from one province in Ireland, from Ulster to the western province. And one of the versions of the saga begins with an absolutely hilarious dialogue between Maeve and her husband. And they're in bed. And I always think of it as a kind of post-coital kind of ease, which develops into a real row.
Like a fabulous marital fight.
Fighting,
There you go.
Yes. And Maeve says, well, aren't you lucky that I married you? She says to her husband, Alil. And he says, yeah, because I'm a great guy. You had all sorts of people raiding on you before I married you, and now they're all afraid to cross the borders of Connacht, so I'm your man, I'm great. And she proceeds then to say, well, everything you own belongs, you're a kept man, everything you own belongs to me. So it develops into this very complex but very funny dialogue about women's rights and men's rights under early Irish law, and it tracks the actual law tracts, in its argument. Well, the Maeve still says, I'm better than you because I have more wealth than you have. You're only what they call in Ireland a cleanish stock. You're only a fella that married into my land. You have brought nothing with you. And he says, well, I have two brothers. My father was the High King of Ireland. I have two brothers who are kings in Ireland. You don't have anyone like that. And Maeve gets angrier and angrier. And I'm sorry, this is taking a
No, go for it.
Love it.
And then finally she insists that on the green before the house, before the palace of Cruachan, they have to set out all their possessions. So I can just visualize this. The kitchens are emptied, so the copper pots and pans are thrown down, and there's such a din. And then all the sort of furnishings, the clothes, etc. And it's found that Alil has exactly the same as Maeve. So they bring in their flocks, and the sheep come in, the cows come in.
This is a real marital fight, man. Oh, Lord.
And finally, after all the counting, they realize, oh, shoot, Alil has a bull that I don't have. I should have him because he was the calf of one of my cows. But he didn't like to think he was owned by a woman, so he crossed over.
The way so many bulls do. Oh, those bulls and their ownership issues.
And Maeve is furious, but she's stumped. And she hears then of this great bull. Alil's bull is called the white-horned bull. And the one she's thinking of taking now is up in Ulster. And he's called the brown horned bull. And he's in the Cooley Peninsula, which is the sort of northwest of Ireland. If you're traveling on the train up to Belfast from Dublin, you'll see the Cooley Peninsula. It's a very picturesque part, but it's a completely different part of Ireland. And there's a bull there, and everything is going fine. Maeve promises the owner that he'll have all sorts of great things, like 50 heifers and the bull back once the bull has done his work. And she'll give him, if he wants to come and live with her permanently, she'll give him a great estate in Connacht and my own friendly thighs.
Oh.
Oh my Lord, what a tasty phrase. Oh, with her husband standing right
yes.
there.
So then the messengers go to Ulster and and they're doing great. He agrees to give the bull until they get very drunk, and one of the messengers says, well, Maeve said originally that if we didn't get him by free choice from you, we were going to take him anyway. And with that, the owner just kind of, how dare you? And says, no, I am never giving that bull. So Maeve corrals mercenaries from the southeast, from the province of Leinster, people that she has sort of issues with, but can't come along anyway, who are suitors for her daughter, from the southwestern province of Munster, the Connacht men themselves. So it's like the whole of Ireland go across Ireland, crossing the Shannon, over to the borders of Ulster, and the great fight begins, in which Maeve takes an active part. So most of the information we have comes from there. But there's one little, because I know everybody in Tarragon is thinking of, not night and day they're dreaming of, but Shakespeare is so important for them. But the Queen of the Fairies, it seems in English lore as well, is called Queen Mab. And it's the Maeve name.
Oh, right.
Name.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I hadn't made that connection in my mind either.
M-E-D-B, but the B is pronounced as a V.
That's a line in the play.
Oh, really?
Yes, she says it's
yes.
spelled M-E-D-B.
Yes,
That's
yes.
right, yes. What
But
kind
in
of a
fact,
spelling
it's a very
is that?
interesting name, because you know the word mead, and the name itself means the giver of an intoxicating drink.
Ooh, see, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Oh, that's
love it.
wonderful. That's wonderful.
So they think originally she's an old sovereignty goddess or something. That because the inauguration of a new king in Ireland was always called the wedding feast of the king. And there are all sorts of stories about kings who have visions of this splendid otherworld woman who comes and gives a drink to him, and in that sense authorizes him as king and recites all his ancestors, or the ancestors of his line, that will be kings thereafter. And the last instance of that is in the 1100s, I think, a king of Scotland, an Alexander king of Scotland. It's recorded at his coronation that his genealogy and all the people in his line who were kings of Scotland were formally pronounced before him. So there seems to be some of the elements of rituals, old rituals of consecration of kings.
And who was the author of this text, of the literary text where Queen Maeve appeared, Maeve?
We don't know. The earliest manuscript of it and the earliest version of it comes from the great monastery of Clonmacnoise. And across the Shannon from Clonmacnoise, of course, is the province of Connacht. And at the time the saga is written, the principal patrons of the monastery of Clonmacnoise are the kings of Connacht. So I think they're writing something that...
Court writers or
yeah.
sort of, they were in a writing room.
Yeah,
You know.
that's right.
Yeah. Anyway, that's...
It's interesting to hear that story and thinking about the play and thinking that what I was thinking about when I was listening to the story was this the argument in the play between the mother and the daughter.
Yeah.
It's a family argument, and it's a very raw in the same kind of way. Although, were you inspired at all by that, or
I didn't know that story.
okay? Because I wasn't sure.
No, I only
sure.
wanted to know as much as the character knew, as much as Mrs. Nurmi, who is her civilian personhood, knows what she a grab bag from when she worked in the library and saw little tales here and there, and the fact that she speaks Irish is just magic. It just is. I think every play should have some magic realism in a sense, because if she is of Irish ancestry, you know, I know my grandmother's grandmother's grandmother spoke only Irish. That's what she would have spoken, and so it must be somewhere genetically. And so yes, I think when you talked about this, what it means is she who gives an intoxicating drink.
Wow.
There's something about that argument.
Yeah.
Too. That it's you know, I had to warn, someone brought a child on Sunday. It was about a 9-year-old child, and I said, you know, I have to tell you, there's not cursing, but it's a very nasty, raw argument. You may want to just tell him to plug his ears during the argument, because it doesn't get nastier really than that. And I think that there's a ferocity, and you say she raided cattle, a ferocity that comes out of this woman, this ordinary woman.
And a bloody mindedness. They both share that, like, I'm going to lay out all my whatever.
Lay out everything.
Yeah, it's going to be right out there.
You did this and you did this, and the daughter's saying, it wasn't like that. Yes, it was.
Yeah. That familial, that ability within a family context to really
That's right.
go for the jugular.
Yeah.
Yes, Anne?
No, I was going to say to you, Judith, that I find that really interesting, because in many ways we know, well, we're pretty certain it's a male writer who was writing this from a monastery, so he was not in any way cultured to...
He had a mother.
Might have had the nicest
Or maybe
mother
it
in
was
the world.
a woman
Yes.
saying she was a male,
Yeah.
as so many writers in England did too. Or
There you go, there you go.
Male pen names.
But if you look at sort of what they made of Maeve, she is a monster.
Yeah.
She's a monstrous
that's interesting.
creation.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I suppose, from the perspective of the daughter in the play, there's the wonderful mother and there's the monster mother, and you have to, in a sense, deal with both of them.
Well,
There's also the monster daughter.
Yes, there is, because she fights back, but actually she's an angel to her grandson. In the first scene, she adores him. She'd do anything for him. And when she supposedly becomes Queen Maeve and kills him with the sword, it's because she actually gave him money because he said he was going to work on a wonderful project, and then he ends up dying of an overdose. So she feels she did that. But then she becomes the monstrous. It's so interesting what you say. It's as if I knew it intuitively. You know, she becomes a monster with her daughter, like a real monster, and her daughter fights as they would have when she was trying to take their cattle, fight back. But ultimately, I think the daughter loses in the sense that any self-esteem she had is destroyed as she walks out. She says, I won't be coming back.
Yeah.
But that's why she has that dream that you see right after, a sort of dream that, oh, my son did love me. She's wrong. I'm not so bad. I'm not terrible. But yeah, so she's the monster and the angel isn't the word you used. It's something, the giver of life and destroyer
Yes,
of life.
exactly, yeah.
And intoxicating drink.
And intoxicating. Because those two scenes are as if there's been an intoxicant.
Yes,
The
true.
scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's. It's interesting too that in the older stories and often in your work, you're not afraid of that more raw side, but that she is not. Maeve is not pretty or delicate, or there's a toughness.
Yeah.
And there's a commander in there, which is so rare, I guess.
Yes, because we, despite the evidence from Britain of somebody like Queen Boudica of the Saini tribe who rebelled against the Romans, we don't really have evidence that paramount kingship was ever given to women. so that Maeve is claiming it, and the row at the beginning is about, what power am I claiming, is really interesting because around this time, and I have a little theory as well about that.
Oh, tell us your little theory.
Around this time, you find for the first time that women are bringing significant wealth. That is, the aristocracy and the nobility are bringing more goods than ever, and they're bringing land with them as well, which they had never been allowed to do before. They're also bringing mercenaries with them.
Oh.
And so when you marry a woman, you really do look at what she's bringing you, and in that kind of warlike society, the mercenaries that are being brought are really important. And they're all coming through, curiously enough, from the Western Islands of Scotland and Donegal and down into Ireland then, from there. But there's one harrowing tale a little bit later, and we know the date of this saga I'm telling you about, where a woman brings these mercenaries in. Her husband goes to war against her father and kills her father and his sons, and she turns her mercenaries against her husband.
Wow, that's very Shakespearean.
Yeah. And the force of character.
Yeah. So that little hard edge of women who have, in a sense, now, for the first time, real fighting power is brought to life again, because I think it was there, with Gaulish Celtic traditions, etc. But it kind of had been lost out of the scene until sort of the 11th and 12th century again.
I think too, Judith, that I'm thinking about the start of the story that Anne just told us about a couple in bed. So it's a very, very domestic, recognizable, relatable scene. And in a way, your play has that because we're in a home. We're in a bedroom with an older lady and her caregiver. And so we think that we understand where we are.
That's right.
Yes.
And yet the play searches for what's at the heart of that.
That's right.
How was that to write? Like did you begin just with the, if I could say it, the ordinary situation, or did you always in your mind have this mythic aspect in your mind?
Actually, the first draft began mythically. She began speaking to the audience, which I don't have that speech now until near the end of the first scene, where she says, they think I'm an ordinary woman, they don't know I'm royal.
Yeah.
That was actually just to the audience. And so she began with that, and it was much longer. And then the PSW didn't come in till the end. But it was so touching, their relationship. I thought it needs to bookend the play. I need to have the PSW on the beginning and the end, a sort of aria da capo. And I'm so glad I did. But yes, the ordinary situation, which most of us can relate to. Many people in the audience have had parents in nursing homes, and so are quite familiar with the world and the routines, and how it's, even when it's absolutely necessary, often the resident, the parent, will feel like they've been thrown away. And even when there's just no other hope, they're a 3-person assist, something, it's just not possible to keep them at home. But it's that there's that terrible tension that families often feel terrible guilt, even though there's no other choice. And I did see a lot of the other residents where my mom was, nice place, Belmont House, but a lot of the other residents had just nobody coming. There were just no visitors. I think partly it's not maybe their fault. They maybe lived, a 6-hour drive away, 7-hour drive, so it would be once every few months. And they were very, very lonely. And they did, and I have that on the sound. It's delicate because we had to balance, vaguely, I don't know if anybody of you have seen it, and vaguely hearing other residents yell, nurse, nurse, or get me out of here. We didn't want to interfere with the dialogue, but it has to be there because it's real, and it's part of the experience there, is it's constant. people in agony, basically emotionally, and feeling abandoned. And yes, so I wanted to explore, this is now an ordinary part of our lives here. And it's something that most of us can expect. And that's frightening, but it's real. And it's also care. I mean, it's good care here. Generally, the care is good. So when she says of this terrible place with mouse droppings and people sitting in excrement, and she's just seeing one side of it, it's actually a very nice place. Because maybe there was a mouse once, you know.
Right, the caregiver seems
she's
remarkably
the best.
devoted.
And she's the best.
Yeah.
She's her lady in waiting, she says.
And it made me think of those workers that I've seen in those that do seem to perform an almost mythic role.
That's right.
The selflessness and the service.
Yeah.
And it always makes you, as the family, feel this great sort of relief
gratitude
that they have. Yeah.
But also, the most important thing for me is that they don't see what's underneath the iceberg. They don't see the baggage that the family members say, what you did to me when I was 13, or what you said, or how you hit me once, or whatever it is. You sent me away to camp all summer. The caregiver only sees this frail elderly person in front of them. And so they don't judge them on any of those things. I find that really beautiful. They just see who's in front of them. So even if the family members are trying to forgive and forget, it'll always be there.
I'm curious about, because we've just been speaking about this, the Mrs. Nurmi and her vulnerability, which is seen by the caregiver. I just suddenly was asking myself, Anne, does Queen Maeve have a moment of vulnerability?
Well,
or a couple?
Oh, indeed she does. But it's kind of interesting. I sometimes think of Maeve as what is her response to all these kind of, if you like, naysayers about women and their power all around her. She can contradict them a zillion times and assert herself, but the same hill has to be climbed every time. And at the end of that saga, there's what to me is a very touching moment. And it's not the way you would think high-class epic should go. It's much too bodily for that. But they're defeated, the Connacht people, but they've got the bull with them, and that's the important thing. But the Ulstermen are chasing them hell for leather, and they're having a very hard time. They're losing a lot of their army. They come to the Shannon, and they could be decimated there because it'll take some time for them to cross. And Maeve, sorry folks, this is going to sound kind of funny. Maeve feels her period coming. And she says to her principal pursuer, who knows her, take pity on me, for I'm a woman and I have to relieve myself. And he does. And he says, okay, I'll spare you. And it says then that, a lake and a river are the result of that kind of stoppage there. Yeah. But what Maeve is doing, I really think, is she's exploiting her body in every way possible. Oh. And sometimes you'll see it with birds and with foxes, that they'll pretend to be lame or have a wing broken, and they lead a fox or a hunter away from the den.
Right.
And I think that's what Maeve is doing. She's using her body, which is the only recourse she has right now, to get her army across and safe. And the final conclusion of it all is a very harsh comment from a man. Look at the state we're in now. Isn't it customary? Doesn't it always happen that when people follow a woman, or when an army follows a woman, they're completely destroyed.
Oh.
And it's like when male horses follow a mare across a boundary and they get lost.
And it's not in the initial text?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
And I thought about that for a while, and I thought about what if the history of horses and
Manship.
wild horses or whatever is not like that. So I went back to read kind of how the domestication of horses, etc. And I discovered that the mares are
The leaders of the flock.
Well,
Boy, that got you so excited.
And so I thought to myself, maybe we were meant here to see how stupid men can be and what they say. That's the vulnerability.
it's interesting about men and romance. That just made me think of that. Because she has just one line about that. After she says, "I never loved my daughter," she admits it. And I'm sure there are many women who, women are expected to feel maternal love. I was lucky, I just did, just happened. But I'm sure there are many who just don't. And it's just something that's expected to be in floods and fountains. And she says it, but then she says, well, we Irish Queen had no time for love. She said, I think I did read she had 42 children. So with my 42 children, she said it was just survival. Love has nothing to do with it. And she said, I knew animal lust. That was great. But it's nothing to do with love. Like, what are you talking about? We had to do the farming, take care of the children, do the wars, all of that, constant work.
And yet, in the play,
Yeah.
there is an incandescent love for
There
the
is.
grandbaby.
There is.
That
Yeah,
absolutely,
there
it is in a way, the romantic center of the play.
It is. It is.
And we see him until we don't, through her eyes, really.
Yes, that's right.
And there's a phenomenal, maybe because he's a grandson and not
Yeah.
her.
What she wished she felt for her daughter. Or, yeah. That he provoked love in her that she didn't know was there. Something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about, since the play deals with this woman confronting death, how does Maeve meet her end?
She doesn't meet her end there.
You mean at the river with her period?
No, no,
Okay.
she doesn't meet her end in that saga at all. It's kind of like, I think the Irish thought of their sort of compendium of stories. Oh, we never did the death of so-and-so. Let's kind of make a story about an appropriate death for so-and-so.
How would she go?
Yeah. And to be honest, folks, I don't remember a death tale for Maeve.
Oh, isn't that wonderful? And yet you vividly remember her bed on the mountain.
Yes, yeah, she died.
Because
She's
when you were
there under
talking
those
about
stones.
it, I was imagining the people carrying her up.
Yeah.
I was imagining the cortege, going up the mountain and the rites and the whatever.
Well,
You're
maybe she
getting
can't
very
die.
Seamus Heaney on us.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be Seamus Heaney any day.
Do any of the poets, the more modern contemporary poets, mention her, or even back in the 19th century, 20th century?
Yes, there was a great vogue. Well, the vogue principally was for the hero Cuchulainn, who is the great Ulster hero. And the Irish literary revival, they absorbed all these stories and made Lady Gregory, the friend of Yeats, published several translations, but there wasn't really a good text of the sagas, still around.
Was it
1900.
oral then mainly, or there was actually
No,
an
they
old
were in
Irish
the great
text?
manuscripts.
In the great and where are they at Trinity College, or where are they?
The
John McMinoy's one, the Book of the Brown Cow, is in the Royal Irish Academy. And there are a number of them also in Trinity. and there are a number of them in the British Museum or the British Library now. So
They took everything, God damn it.
but you know, nobody would dream of sort of saying to Trinity, you know, let's make a big library where all the treasures are. Danger lies that way when you collect too strenuously.
There's a fire and you lose it.
And it all goes. It all goes. Yeah. And you said something, and you talked a little bit about it, but I watched the video that was made, and you talked about singing an ordinary life in this play. And I was really fascinated by that, and yet finding its mythic corollary. Can you talk a little bit, like, how did you find her librarian, like that she's just a woman in an ordinary life with an extraordinary.
Well, that's true. I don't think there are any ordinary lives. There's an interview with Alice Munro after she won the Nobel Prize, but before her Alzheimer's had set in, and he asked a really stupid question, the interviewer. I think he flew over here and said, well, all your stories are set in, I know there are problems about Alice Munro, but we'll just ignore that for right now, just about, as a writer. And he said, they're all set in small towns. Like, how can anything interesting happen to people in these small places? And she just very politely paused and said, I guess you had to be there.
Oh, that's perfect.
That's great.
Yeah. So yes, there is no ordinary life. Like, every person has a mythic, extraordinary dimension to them, and I think it's so easy to forget people, the homeless, just people in room 102, 103, 104 in the nursing home, and the poor PSWs are generally so busy, so understaffed, they have to just rush through it and can't give them the time that Siobhan does, because Siobhan becomes part of this mythos. She is a lady in waiting. We also wanted there to be, and I think Carolyn's captured it, a sort of at the end as if she's inside it. She's not just watching from the outside. She becomes part of this myth. But I think that we recognize that people that we do dismiss or don't look at or fully recognize have an enormous power somewhere.
That character is also like an incredible, meaning the Siobhan character is like a gladiator.
Yes.
In a way, to me, because watching somebody deal with someone like Maeve, like Mrs. Nurmi, who's irascible and who can be inside with her and never minimize her. There's something gladiatorial about that capacity to reckon with somebody's reality.
Yes, and she does easily. She just knows how to deflect, how to calm her, she knows that, she says, I just look at what's underneath the cranky. She just, a friend of mine has a partner much older who's goes into these panics and rants, and I'll feel like a taxi, and he says, well, I just know that it's just his anxiety and it will pass, and he doesn't take it personally. I don't know how he can cope, but he does. He just lets it and says, oh, he's just anxious, it's okay.
How beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord, an angel nature.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, did Maeve have a confidant?
Not really.
Or she sui generis? She was just...
Yeah, no, I can't imagine.
Okay.
She did have children, right?
42.
Many, 42, yeah.
Counted in series of 7. 6 sevens.
Oh my God.
But I wanted to ask you, Judith, because there's myth or whatever, there's trying to reach the kind of spiritual otherness of life and the world or whatever. And does that make you interested in ghosts and presences?
Every person in the theater community believes in ghosts.
Yes,
there is
we have a ghost light
there's
in
a
the
ghost
theater.
light, exactly, and we can feel them there on the stage. And it's a genuine belief, and I believe that obviously each of us carries ghosts around us. My mother's right here, my father's right here, my friend who died of suicide is here. You know, we all carry all these people with us at all times. And whether it's not an embodied presence, unless you're lucky and get to actually see them.
Amen.
Robert Perskini actually saw his grandmother, who had just died, right at the foot of his bed, standing.
My gosh.
Yeah, and he wasn't kidding, and he wasn't.
Wow.
He wasn't confabulating.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, I'm jealous too. But no, we completely do believe it, and I believe it's part of every play that matters.
Yeah.
There are ghosts on the stage. There is something mythic about the story. It has to be bigger than just scenes from life, as we think it is, apparently real. Yeah.
I'm wondering if we want to open it up
yeah.
and if anyone has any questions for Judith or Anne. We don't want to lock you out. You might have the most fascinating question of all. Yes, Mama.
Not directly related to the play, but this was on the current today as well. Why and when did Gaelic morph into Irish as the overarching way of addressing the language?
For you.
Oh, yeah, for you.
We think and we know that there were different varieties of a Celtic language being spoken through Western Europe, down into the Iberian Peninsula, down into the Italian sort of Alpine valleys, and then over certainly to Ireland. But there were dialects in that. We have some very early fragments from northern Italy that look like they are not an Italic version of a European, but a real, definite, separate Celtic one. We have plenty of inscriptions from the Iberian Peninsula. We have lots of fragments of writing from Gaul, including a lot of curse tablets, etc., that would have been deposited into lakes and into the earth for permanence. And in the Gaulish material, we think we can see a difference that in northern Gaul,
This is France, right? Gaul was France.
they're speaking a language that could conceivably have easily turned into the Celtic language spoken in Ireland, which itself travelled to Scotland and to the Isle of Man. Now, probably the relationships between the rest of Gaul and Britain produced a version of Celtic that gives us Welsh, and from Welsh, Breton and Cornish, etc. So we can divide it like that, if you like. So the big question we don't know how to answer is, how did material culture travel with language? People borrow material culture items, like the way you make a knife or a spoon or a sword or whatever, the way you make a necklace, and they borrow them, but their language may not change. So we have a very hard time distinguishing then the dates by which, archaeology can tell us more or less when a material culture arrives in a place, but they can't necessarily, unless they find writing, they can't necessarily tell when a language change occurs. So that's a problem that we're always wrestling with. And there's a difference in attitude. For example, have you ever noticed that English archaeologists will speak about Roman Britain, and then they will jump and say Dark Age Britain or Iron Age Britain? They will never say something is Celtic. And it's I find it an astonishing disregard for the fact that before the 5th century or so, when the Germanic peoples moved into Britain, the language spoken in the island of Britain was Celtic.
Oh, was it in the whole island?
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. Yeah, oh absolutely. Yeah. So there's a very interesting kind of thing there. If you look at the program Digging for Britain, for example, you'll notice that immediately if you're watching TV. So that's the basic division that we've got. There are Italic dialects, of which Latin is the one that is best known, that seems like closely related to Irish, or to Celtic, excuse me. But by the time the horizon of literacy comes in Britain and Ireland, with the arrival of people who can write and have a mission to write, Christianity and merchants keeping accounts, what was I going to say there? I can't remember.
Well, I'm very interested in how Christianity did. Were there people who wanted to hang on to their Celtic religions and gods and goddesses and resisted it, or did it just take over?
I think it must have figured as, of course, the Romans would have brought Christianity into Britain, but into Ireland, where the Romans never were, except for a few trading centres. What brought Christianity into Ireland was probably the raiding that the Irish were doing on Roman Britain and bringing back mostly female slaves. So you will find households where the children belong to a mother who is definitely not pagan or whatever. And when you look at, say,
a woman enslaved.
a concubine. And if you look at, say, St. Patrick's Genuine Confessions from the 5th century, he gives many examples of that. And he also gives examples that his first converts really were, he first ministered, I think, to these poor slave women who were Christian and brought over in raids. And the second group that were attracted to him were actually women, indeed wealthy women in households, who probably were attracted to Christianity because it didn't seem to involve beliefs or ways of life that involved you in countless war. You didn't have to raise your sons to be sort of sword father or whatever.
Now, the way you do now.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh.
So
That's so interesting.
that's I think the way.
And did he convince any of them that it was wrong to have enslaved women?
Yes, he did. We don't know how successful he was, but he protested very strongly. And he does talk about thousands of people, but to the end of his life, he doesn't seem, at least from Irish tradition, he does not seem to have converted the kings. So,
The commoners were more open to it.
Yeah. The kings didn't like to give up their
ways,
until
until they were sure that it was bringing prestige. And once it was bringing prestige, I could have somebody I'm friendly with in Gaul in a very wealthy spot. I could go on my holidays there, or a little raiding party to there.
Little raiding party. Ooh, yeah, Lord.
Anyway,
More questions?
Sorry, this is not about the play, but it's just about what we were just talking about and your question. And I don't know you're familiar with the work of John Philip Newell?
No.
John Philip Newell. Okay.
Who is a Scottish writer, I guess, and teacher who has published books on Celtic spirituality. And he has one book in particular that talks about these branches of like the Roman Christianity and the Celtic Christianity, and what what was happening in those times. And there's these fascinating, easy to read actually, about these different well-known people in the Celtic Christian church who actually had a lot of ideals and ideas that were had been brought forth from the sort of more
Pagan traditions.
Some of which were, for example, that we can have a direct relationship with God.
Well, I was raised Catholic. You can't.
Right.
No.
You need a priest.
And then it's
Can't get by the nuns.
how the Roman world shut that down, like excommunicated people, and because that was against the way that empire.
Because you needed a priest,
Yeah.
the male
You
priest.
needed
The
yeah.
power.
hierarchy,
Yeah.
and you needed, and otherwise, if everyone is equal and everyone has access to God and everyone,
Yeah.
we can't legitimize taking over.
That's it.
The
That's
world.
it. Yeah.
But
And
the
even then, you
Celt-
need intermediary because Mary would intercede on your behalf,
That's
and
it.
Jesus would intercede to God.
yeah.
Like, can I just have that other present? And
But the Celtic tradition, you're saying, had a more direct relationship. Yes.
If people are interested in the topic, I just came across this too, so nice to meet you. And to sort of go full circle, it would have been the Druidic influence that morphed into, and there's a part about the goddess initiating kings. So the way you spoke about that, the liquor or the intoxication, there's a rite that goes back to those times about, and the balance of power between women and men would be that women very much are the keepers of the land and the wealth, and that the male role is to protect, and that they work in balance. So where Maeve gets out of whack is to think she's more powerful, which of course we're seeing now the reverse with patriarchy, whatever. But back to the Druids, and there's a whole theory that there's a Celtic church that predates the Roman church, and that was that marriage of Gnostic principles, if you heard that theory, and the Druidic way, which wasn't ever documented, right? It was all verbal.
Yeah.
So then, to your point where you come now, the Romans take over and see the opportunity for power if the people can't access their own sense of a relationship. So, and then it builds from there.
Some of that comes, I think, from, to begin here with your question, comes from Reformation issues. Because when the Church of England, shall we say, established the Church of England as the official Church of England, but also they created that as well. They took over the cathedral sites, etc., established their own bishops there. And they were very keen to kind of push, if you like, Catholicism out of the way. And any argument they had to insist that Catholicism was not authentic Christianity was welcome, so to speak. So they associated then superstitions and Christianity or Catholicism together, etc. And this whole idea that you can access God directly which was refuted up here with us ladies, is a very, if you like, evangelical Protestant idea.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Now, the other one, which brings you to the alignment of Druids and knowledge making and so on, that I think has different origins, and it would be very, very interesting to track that. Very, very interesting to track that. It is in some ways a myth. The Patrick, there is absolutely no doubt, and the early saints, there are some amazingly early, by comparison with the rest of Western Europe, saints' lives in Ireland that, excuse me, that make it quite clear that what we're looking at is a Roman organized church that was always in communion with Rome. What we're, excuse me, what we're seeing, however, is a fairly benign treatment of Druids in those early lives. Now, in the early lives of Patrick, there are real contests with Druids where they do sort of contests of miracle working between them. And Patrick shows himself the more experienced miracle worker than the Druids. But in the life of Bridget, for example, which is earlier than that still, Bridget is fostered as a child with a Druid. And there's a lovely incident when she's a child where she's asleep and the Druid is doing his work. He's up observing the stars, which of course gives you an interesting insight into what they thought was appropriate for a Druid to be doing, something very innocuous. A scientist, in other words, a philosopher, a seer, studying the stars. And there's a light in a corner of the house, and the light is over the child, and the child is saying in Latin, meum erit hoc, meum erit hoc. They're totally bamboozled. What language is she speaking? She's speaking, of course, Christian language, Latin. And the Druid says, because he has a Christian friend staying with him that night, he says, I can't interpret this, you interpret for me. And the friend says what she's saying, this is my place, this is my place. And the Druid very generously gives her that whole area as to found a monastery on eventually, but it belongs in the possessions of Bridget of Kildare and subsequent generations. This is sweet talk, a nice talk, and we can only imagine that there were a number of situations where there was a very harmonious kind of transition. Excuse me. It's interesting that women are the transmitters of that more benign approach. And Patrick, because he's a priest with his orders and his power of that kind, excuse me, doesn't have these power, doesn't have that he confronts directly, not in a sense, in a sweet encounter between a child having a dream and
That's beautiful.
and a druid.
Yeah, water.
And on that,
Storyteller you were.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, on
beautiful.
that amazing
I'm
note,
so
Anne,
sorry,
Fantastic.
folks. I hope none of you, and particularly Judith, because she's precious to us in Canada, guys.
Yes.
She's utterly precious.
Oh,
yes,
as are you.
amen.
I have a question. So I haven't done my research. So why did you set it in at this point of her life, where she's got in a nursing home and with a caregiver, and why then versus at a different juncture of her life, given the history?
Because this is when she needs the most courage to face this time in her life in a nursing home, and where she feels deserted and abandoned, and because the ultimate battle is death, and she's not ready for it. She's been in denial about it, and she knows she hasn't. She has not faced her memories. She's not dealt with them and gone deeply into them. She's sort of pushed them aside, and she needs to go back to the pivotal moment when when she gave her grandson money and he died, because she's felt that corroding any sense of having done the right thing, where she didn't really. He did take it, and she just, it's not her fault. And also especially remembering her daughter and being able to be accountable. And I think to be accountable was the beginning of facing it, feeling sorry, saying I'll be nice to her. I need it's a verb. I can do something even if I don't feel it. That's a non-issue in a way. You have to act on it so that she's ready for that. That's why. And I also think a sense of place in theater is so important. And being set at a nursing home doesn't need to be dreary. So that'd be the first thought, oh, I don't really want to see something in a nursing home. But everybody's passions, and it's raw there, because there's no filters.
Yeah.
For the most part, at a nursing home. I love the way they would look at you. It's like the way a toddler looks at you. Just look right at you. Think, ooh, you're seeing inside me, past my armor. And toddlers and very old people, because they don't care. They're just looking right at you.
That's a beautiful thought. Yeah.
And,
Terrifying thought.
Yeah.
I'm being signaled that we need to allow people to go in and see the play. So please, thank you for being here tonight, and please enjoy Queen Maeve. Thank you, Judith.
Yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant. Oh, I've learned so much.